Ruth was a young woman with a sharp tongue and an attitude that could cut like a knife. People in the office knew her as the secretary who never smiled, who answered questions with sarcasm, and who always looked down on others. From the moment she stepped into the company, she carried herself with pride, as if she was better than everyone else. It all began on a Monday morning, the busiest day of the week. The office was filled with employees rushing to their desks, some balancing cups of coffee, others typing quickly on their keyboards. Phones rang constantly, and printers hummed in the background. In the middle of all the noise, Ruth sat at her desk, filing her nails, ignoring the pile of work waiting for her, when one of the junior staff, a polite young man named David, approached her desk with some documents. She looked at him with irritation. "What is it again?" she snapped. David smiled. "Nervously, I was told to submit these reports to you so they can be signed by the manager." Ruth rolled her eyes. "Do I look like a messenger to you? Can't you take them to the manager yourself?" David tried to explain. "I was asked to give them to you first, so you can check the details before he signs. Then wait until I am ready," Ruth said coldly, turning back to her phone. David left quietly, but his heart was heavy. He was not the only one who had faced her sharp words. Almost every staff member had a story about how Ruth embarrassed them or treated them badly, yet nobody dared to complain because Ruth was close to the manager. She had been working with him for years, and she often used that relationship to make herself untouchable. Ruth's rudeness extended beyond the office. Whenever clients visited, she greeted them without warmth, sometimes even with annoyance. Once an elderly man came to see the manager, but because he looked poor and simple, Ruth sneered at him. "Do you even have an appointment?" she asked harshly. The man nodded. "Yes, I called earlier." Ruth laughed mockingly. "I doubt that. People like you don't usually have business here. Why don't you go back and check again?" The man felt humiliated. Unknown to Ruth, that same elderly man was one of the company's biggest investors. When the manager later learned how Ruth had treated him, he was deeply embarrassed. But Ruth defended herself. "Sir, I was only trying to protect you from unnecessary visitors. Not everyone deserves to waste your time." The manager sighed. He knew she was wrong, but Ruth had a way of twisting her words. He let it pass, hoping she would improve, but instead, her behavior grew worse. One day, the company received a new intern named Sarah. She was a bright, respectful young lady eager to learn. On her first day, she greeted Ruth cheerfully. "Good morning. I am Sarah, the new intern. I was told to report to you for orientation." Ruth gave her a cold stare. "So, you think I have time for that? Go sit down and figure things out yourself. If you can't, then you don't belong here." Sarah felt her heart sink, but she forced a smile. She tried to ask simple questions, but Ruth dismissed her every time. The other employees pitied Sarah, but they could only whisper among themselves. Weeks passed, and Ruth's attitude remained the same. She shouted at cleaners, mocked junior staff, and even rolled her eyes when the manager gave her instructions. Yet because she worked fast when she wanted to, the manager overlooked many of her faults. But the day of her downfall came unexpectedly. The company was preparing for an important presentation with international partners. Everything needed to be perfect: documents, slides, and schedules. The manager trusted Ruth with handling the arrangements, including welcoming the guests. It was the biggest responsibility she had ever been given. On the day of the presentation, Ruth came late. She walked in casually, wearing flashy clothes and heavy makeup. The guests had already arrived, but there was no one to guide them to the conference room. They waited uncomfortably in the reception area until one of the junior staff noticed and quickly stepped in. When Ruth finally saw them, instead of apologizing, she said rudely, "You people should have told me you were here earlier. I am not a mind reader." The guests were shocked. They exchanged confused glances, whispering among themselves. One of them, a woman from the UK, frowned. "Is this how your company treats its visitors?" she asked coldly. Ruth laughed lightly, as if it were a joke. "Relax, you'll be fine." The partners felt insulted. By the time the manager arrived and tried to calm the situation, the damage had already been done. During the meeting, the guests remained distant, their enthusiasm gone. At the end, they informed the manager they would reconsider their partnership. The manager was furious. He called Ruth into his office. "What on earth were you thinking?" he demanded. Ruth folded her arms. They were too impatient. If they cannot wait, maybe they are not serious partners. The manager could not believe his ears. He slammed his desk. "Enough, Ruth. You have embarrassed this company for the last time." For the first time, Ruth felt a chill run down her spine. She had never seen him so angry, but she still tried to defend herself. "Sir, you know I am loyal. I have always been by your side." "Loyal?" the manager snapped. "You call insulting staff and humiliating clients loyalty? You have ruined months of work in just one morning. Pack your things and leave this office today." Ruth's face turned pale. She thought he was only angry and would calm down, as always. But this time, he was serious. Security was called to escort her out. As Ruth walked out of the building, the employees stared in silence. Some felt pity, but most felt relief. For years, they had endured her arrogance. Now the burden was lifted. At first, Ruth told herself she didn't care. She believed she could find another job easily. But days turned into weeks, and rejection followed rejection. Word had spread about her behavior. The corporate world was smaller than she thought. No one wanted to hire someone with a reputation for rudeness and disrespect. Her savings soon ran out. She struggled to pay her rent and eventually had to move out of her comfortable apartment. She went back to live with her mother, who shook her head in disappointment. "Ruth," her mother said softly, "I warned you many times. Pride goes before a fall. You never listened." Ruth sat silently, tears streaming down her face. For the first time, she saw the truth. She remembered every person she had insulted, every colleague she had mocked, and every opportunity she had ruined with her own mouth. One day, while walking through the market, she saw Sarah, the intern she had once treated harshly. Sarah greeted her warmly, without a trace of bitterness. "Good afternoon, Sister Ruth. How are you?" Ruth forced a smile. "I am fine." Sarah told her that she had been offered a permanent position at the company after her internship. Ruth felt a sting in her heart. The girl she once despised now held the job she lost. That night, Ruth cried bitterly. She realized that her rudeness had destroyed her career and reputation. If only she had treated people with kindness, things would have been different. From that day on, Ruth decided to change. She humbled herself, started attending seminars about personal growth, and even volunteered in community programs. Slowly, she learned the value of respect and humility, though her journey was long and difficult. Ruth never forgot the lesson: rudeness may give temporary power, but in the end, it leads to destruction. And so, the story of Ruth, the rude secretary, became a lesson for many in the town, a reminder that no matter how smart or skilled one is, without kindness and respect, success cannot last. Thanks for watching. Please like, comment, and subscribe.